Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Baker, and I will be presenting to you the life of Tupac Shakur. Born June 16, 1971, Tupac Amaru Shakur was the son of a very prominent leader of the Black Panther movement. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, he grew up in a single-parent household with his mother, Afeni, and sister, Sekiwa. It was hard for them growing up, especially after Sekiwa's father got sentenced 60 years in prison for government conspiracy. So that family ended up leaving Harlem for Baltimore, Maryland. Afeni eventually led up to having a strong drug addiction. In my opinion, it was just sad to see like such a strong woman be subject to such temptation. In school, Shakir always had a passion for the arts. That is where he met the great Jada Pinkett Smith at Baltimore School for the Arts in Maryland. Tupac was such a projecting actor. When he acted, it was like he became the character. So he excelled in most of the classes. I like to say the top of the classes. Sadly, all that had to come to an end because Afeni decided to move her two children to Oakland, California with a friend of hers. Out in that heinous city where Tupac was led to sell his first drug to support himself and his family. Luckily, his strong attraction to hip hop and the arts that drove him away from the life of selling drugs. In 1989, when Tupac was 17, he met with a lady that had connections with Atron Gregory, who at the time was the manager of a very popular group called Digital Underground. He was able to strike a deal getting paid as a background dancer while they were on tour in 1989 to around 1990. Shakur soon grew tired of not grasping his aspirations, so in 1991 he dropped the dance moves and picked up the microphone. And he was able to be featured on the hit song Same Song. Perplexities happened with Shakur's deal since they had a new manager, but that ended up being a good thing for Tupac and that put him on a new path of prominence and self-development with a label called Interscope Records. With Tupac's arisal of fame, he was able to become a leader of his own group, THUGLIFE, which is an acronym for Thug Life. Members consisting of Big Syke, Mopreme, Stretch, Macadosis, and The Rated R. They produced songs such as Bury Me a G, Pour Out a Little Liquor, and etc. A downfall with Tupac's uprisal in fame was with his run-ins with the law. I didn't have a police record until I made a record, said Tupac Shakur, which is true. Shakur went on to have an altercation which led up to a physical altercation that led up to him dropping his firearm in a discharge, killing a child. He had to pay a settlement in between $300,000 and $500,000 to the parents of the child. Tupac was arrested in Atlanta after shooting two off-duty cops when they were harassing a black man. Now, for one of his most famous run-ins with the law was when he was allegedly accused, of raping Ayanna Jackson. He had previously had sexual encounters with Ayanna Jackson, so there was, in my opinion, there was no need for him to rape her. He already had it. A few weeks later, he was shot 5 times and robbed for over $35,000 in cash and jewelry. Luckily, he recovered from that experience, which led to his hostility towards his former friend, the Notorious B.I.G., and hostility towards the entire East Coast music industry. In 1995, those alleged rape charges of Ayanna Jackson came up into court. Oddly though, the people he was with at the time of the rape were nowhere to be found or accused of the actual crime. The girl, at the day of the crime, Tupac stated that the girl came into his room all frantic, saying what they did to him, and switched it up the day of the crime when she said that he did it to her. They all got separate hearings, and he was sentenced to a minimum of 18 months and a maximum of 4 years in a maximum security jail. Shakur was working on an interview while simultaneously in jail with Kevin Powell discussing the struggles of becoming or being a black man in America. And also while being incarcerated, he became the first man or person in general to ever have a #1 record in jail. After 9 long months of incarceration, Marion Suge Knight, the record owner of Death Row Records, struck a deal with Tupac stating that he had to make a few hit records to make back the money that he just posted, which was $1.9 million bail, to the record label. Secure brought up his end to the table, but there were a lot of things that made him unable to separate himself from the record label. It brings me great displeasure to say that, sadly, on September 13th, 1996, the life of Tupac Amaru Shakur came to an end. He was murdered in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, and roughly 25 years after, the assailants still have yet to be caught. Overall, Tupac was just an eccentric and charismatic person. People loved him. In his 25 years, he achieved having over 10 platinum records or albums and starring in 5 movies. The reason why I spoke on Tupac is because I always find myself listening to his music in sadness, happiness, or whatever mood I'm in. He's just different. No man was like him. No man can ever be like him, in my opinion. He could give you a song that could never make you want to trust a woman again, only for the following week to give a song that is very empowering in the face of women. That concludes my speech. My name is Sean Baker, and thank you for listening.